Dum 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 dum. Dun 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 dun. Tall toy tales every freaking time. I can't get it right. Welcome. Hello, everybody. Slightly different Tall Toy Tales today. Hope you've had a good week. Usual crowd. Hi, Ken. He's been waiting half an hour. Ken Plume. Tony Z, welcome back. Usual suspects, which is appropriate for today's theme. You're back from last week. Still thirsty for more, are you? Well, I'm going to drop all those little movie puns all over the place. Last week, I took you on a massive tour of all of my toys, all of my collectibles, and my throat really suffered from it. My wife is a teacher. I don't know how she talks all day, every day. And then she gets home. She talks some more. She talks a lot more when she gets home. So I was exhausted, but it was really good fun. So for those of you returning, thank you. I hope you enjoyed yourself. You clearly did because you're back from what? Unless you're sadistic, which you might be. I don't know. Maybe you are. This week, we are going to talk about movies and entertainment and TV shows and how they and toy collecting and toys are intrinsically linked throughout our culture, throughout our nostalgia, throughout our childhood and teens and adulthood, and form the foundation of many a collectible line of toys. Because as I was talking last week, I realized as I was doing it, I was like, these are all like movies. Like God, movies have such an impact on us. So what I wanted to do is take you through my own personal journey of movies and TV shows and how they've stayed with me and informed and influenced the way I collect toys at the moment, if you will allow me to. I appreciate that Tall Toy Tales is a little bit self-centered, a little bit egocentric, but I do hope that in amongst all this self-gratification that I give myself, that there's something that sparks something in you, something that you go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Or, he's just like me. That's great. Or he's completely different from me. What a weirdo. But that makes me think about who I am. So even if you can just get a little bit of that out of it, this is all worthwhile. Plus, I think in the long run, this is a really great way personally for me to capture my thoughts and my passions and the things I love to do for myself, my kids, my grandchildren, the great-great-grandchildren, millions of years down the line. If we're still it, we won't be here. Can look back and go, what the hell was great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaddy Mr. Stevie 18 all about? So we're going to talk about movies. Just to say hello to a few of you who've come in. Hey, Fiore, it's Anthony, isn't it? Is it Anthony or Anthony? I never know. Hey, Fiore. Good, difficult name, but and Toytastic77. Tour video was amazing. Give yourself a gold star. I got to show that one. I will. Gold star, which is funny because we talk a lot about childhoods and school days and things today. Anyway, my mum was on last week and she watched the whole thing. Clearly, I don't call her enough, which I don't. So thank you, Mummy, for sticking around. And she did give me one piece of feedback from last week. She said, I really liked what you did, Stephen. She's the only one that calls me Stephen. But you don't go on. You don't half go on a bit. And I kept finding myself saying, come on, Stephen, wrap it up. So I'm sorry, Mum. You know me. You brought me up. I babble a lot. That's because I had no brothers and sisters to talk to. So I just talk to myself, and I have a tendency to yabber on because no one's ever told me to shut up. So I will shut up. Shutting up, sir. And we'll get on with it. So, yeah, Anthony, you spell it, but how do you say it? You got to write it phonetically. Anthony's telling me it's Anthony. And I'm like, yeah, is it Anthony or is it Anthony? Okay. Anyway, let's get on. Where should we start? Well, the best place to start is probably the very beginning. First movie I ever went to see was Peter Pan. And there's a little picture of me right in the corner there. Let's have a little look. There we go. There I am. Just there. Look how cute I was. I was like a little Peter Pan in those days. My mum and dad, I was living in Canada at the time, took me to see Peter Pan. Peter Pan had a wonderful influence on my life. And essentially, as you know, if you were there last week, my mum and dad call me Tink. Or my mum calls me Tink. My dad passed away, but my mum calls me Tink when she's not calling me Stephen. Thank you, Left Coast Graphics. And other people call me Tink as well. All right, so Peter Pan had a big influence on my life. And of course, I've got some Peter Pan stuff, which I showed you last week. But what I like to do is the movies and the TV shows that I fell in love with as kids. I kind of revisit them now. I either by either watching them or looking through magazines, but collecting toys. So Peter Pan was a big part of my life. And during that time, when I was very, very young, I remember watching television. I didn't go to the cinema a lot because I was like 2, 3, 4, 5. I was young, and we didn't go to the cinema a lot as a family, especially in the UK. I was brought up in England, if you can't tell by the accent. But I remember watching a lot of TV, and particularly sort of Saturday mornings, I would watch Tarzan with Johnny Weissmuller, who you can see there on the left there, in black and white, 1930s, late 30s, early 40s. I clearly wasn't alive in the 30s and 40s, but somehow this would be on TV, and I'd love it. I'd love Johnny Weissmuller television, Tarzan. And on the right, later on in the 60s and early 70s, I believe, I don't know if it went through into the 70s. What's the guy's name? I've got notes. I forget his name. Ron Ely. Do you remember watching Tarzan? Ron Ely? And that was Ngawa. Oh, no, that was Johnny Weissmuller saying Ngawa. I can't remember what he used to say, Ron Ely. But I used to love Tarzan. I don't know if anyone else watched it, but that was really big. And black and white had a theme for me as a young kid. And as I keep saying, I'm not that old. I used to love Buster Crabbe, Flash Gordon. And I know George Lucas was particularly inspired by Flash Gordon and those kind of like serials and like serial shorts. And I used to love watching Buster Crabbe in Flash Gordon. And also, what else did he do? He did Buck Rogers as well, didn't he? He was all the stars. So I used to love watching those two things. And then also with that, George Reeves, Superman. Again, these were, when was that? That was the 50s. I think we went up into the 50s with George Reeves. And that was my first Superman. Bear in mind, the Superman hadn't come out yet. I liked Superman because of this TV show, this black and white TV show. And my mum always reminds me, Stephen, you used to run upstairs, get the red towel from the laundry cupboard, ask me to put a safety pin through, and so you could tie it around your neck. And then you used to jump from chair to chair in the living room, pretending to be George Reeves' Superman. So you can imagine, as I got into movies, I had something amazing coming up on the horizon. What do we got here? We got some comments. I'm going to pull these in. Tony Z. Champion. Oh yeah, Champion the Wonder Horse. Champion the Wonder Horse. I love soundtracks. In case you haven't, unless you don't know that, I love soundtracks and I love theme tunes. I love to sing all the time. My daughter actually told me off. I was in the car the other day, and she turned to me and she goes, "Dad, why are you always like humming and whistling and singing? You're weird." But I used to love Champion the Wonder Horse as well. So anyway, that's what I used to do when I was very, very little. And these kind of started to build the seeds of information and inspiration for little Stevie. Now, here's another great picture. So, God, this is awful. I look like Barry Norman. Any of those of you in England who remember Barry Norman used to do, what was that TV show called? Oh, God, what was it? It was a film review show. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Someone in the chat, tell me what that's called. It's gone from my brain completely. It's probably just something like film or something. But anyway, I saw Star Wars in 1978. It was just into 8, so it must have been either in the Chinese theater for like a whole year, or it was on its second round. I don't know. But I was in LA on a holiday with my mum and dad in 78, and I saw Star Wars at Man's Chinese Theater, or Grumman's Chinese Theater. And I don't remember it at all. I haven't a clue. All I remember was it being very loud, and I remember the TIE fighter sounds scaring the crap out of me. So it was, oh yeah, they just called it film, didn't they? Film 78. Is that right? Okay, maybe. Jason's telling me it's just called film, whatever the date, whatever the year was. Okay. So I don't remember it. So the first real film that really, really hit me and stuck with me was Superman, 1978. So I was 5 going on to 6, and I remember getting a Superman for my birthday, and I remember my mum and dad took me to see Superman at the theater, at the cinema in London. Now I've been to see, so it's Leicester Square. So Leicester Square is the equivalent of that in London, in England. Okay. So Leicester Square. So we went down and went on the train. I've been to see three films in Leicester Square with my parents. We didn't go out to the cinema much. Superman, E.T., Return of the Jedi. This was my first trip. We went on train. I was very excited. I was probably about 5 or 6. And I remember seeing it, and I remember it. And I remember just going home on the train, doing that thing where you're kind of like going past as the train's taking you, pretending to fly. Yeah, we've all done it. All right, we've all done it. So Superman was my first big movie that I really loved. And the great thing about this was that I could go back and watch the George Reeves serial on TV and continue the story, because to me they were kind of interchangeable. It was just Superman. It wasn't, I didn't recognize the actor. It was just Superman, Superman, Superman. So Superman was great. First one. Second one, 1980. It was a quick follow-up. I was dead into it already. I was just like, oh my God, oh my God. 1980 was a good year, by the way, for movies. We'll get to that. But Superman 2 was fantastic. And it was the first time I watched a movie and I got upset. I was genuinely upset that Superman gave up his powers for Lois Lane. I'm 5 or 6. Girls are icky, right? I was like, what is he doing? Why is he doing that? Now he can't defeat Zod. He's an idiot. Why has he done that? And I was genuinely upset. And when he got beaten up in the diner, my blood. It was mortifying for me. So that was the first movie where I really had a visceral, emotional reaction to anything that I'd ever seen before. And I was genuinely angry with Superman, but it all turned out well in the end. So I have some Superman stuff. There wasn't a lot of stuff available, and you've heard me talk about this before. Superman, Superman 2. There clearly was not enough toys from those two movies. It is insane and in some ways immoral that there weren't more toys that looked like the movie. Like, you could get toys, and I've got a few, but you couldn't. It wasn't really Superman the movie toys. I got my lunchbox. I got a few glasses. I got the Topps cards, and I got a few bits and pieces. But that is one movie or set of movies that I would like to. I would love there to be more stuff for. I'm gonna pull some stuff up here. Left Coast. Remember seeing Superman and several blockbusters. Drive-in as a kid. You Americans and your drive-ins. We don't have drive-ins in England. There's probably is one now. Someone in England tell me if they're drive-ins. But like back in the day, no such thing. You didn't have drive-ins. What was that about? That was something you saw at the movies about American people going to the movies, and every single English kid was deathly jealous of every single American kid because you all went to the drive-in movies every single night, right? So Superman. So I went and saw Star Wars at Mann's, but I don't remember it. But I remember Empire. So mum and dad took me to see a double bill, which is very unheard of in England, right? You guys got drive-ins. We didn't have drive-ins. You guys had double bills, which we'll talk about more later. But in England, we didn't have double bills, but we had one for Star Wars and Empire because they were cultural phenomenons. I managed to say that. And so mum and dad took me to see Star Wars and Empire double bill when I was, where was I then? I was 7, 8, probably 80, might have been waiting to 81. We always got things later in England. So when they were released over here, poor old England got them like a year later sometimes. I was so excited to go. I kept going to the toilet, kept weeing. We were late, and I think mum and dad were late, and we missed the Star Wars part of it. And we arrived at the Battle of Hoth, I think it was, or maybe when Luke got smashed by the Wampa. But needless to say, I went and saw Empire loads and loads of times. So that was when I really got into Star Wars and collected all my toys. 83, we hit Jedi. It was just a constant stretch from about the age of about 5, 6, 7, all the way through to 11, 12. I was quite late. I just Star Wars. That was my main toy love. And Return of the Jedi. It's funny because I look at this green lightsaber. There's something about this green lightsaber. But and I think the trailer had the blue lightsaber. Well, when they showed clips from the movie on something like on Saturday morning TV, Swap Shop and things like that, I remember as a kid being so amazed that he had a green lightsaber. I'd never seen a green lightsaber before, and I quite like the color green. And why has Luke changed the color of his lightsaber? And he looked cool. Like, this was the first time you saw Luke all in black with green, and he looked angry, and he was like tough. He was a tough guy. And I remember watching it thinking, this is it's so amazing. I can taste, sometimes when you think back to a time when you can taste and smell I don't know whether you do that. I do. I can taste and smell the time of my life when I was getting excited about Return of the Jedi. And I remember entering competitions in on TV. There was, I think it was Saturday Swap Shop. I mentioned it. They had this competition to win. I think it was like the Jabba and like the Millennium Falcon, all these Kenner toys, and I entered it. And in those days, you thought, well, I'm bound to win because no one else is going to bother to enter, and clearly everyone did. And I didn't win, and I was greatly upset. And I also remember applying for Jim will Fix It. Again, this is very UK centric. Apologies to all my American friends, but you should actually don't Google Jim will Fix It. But anyway, Jim will Fix It was a TV show that you would write into and say, hey, I'd like to go here. I'd like to go on a roller coaster, or I'd like to go see a spaceship. And I wrote in, I'd like to meet the cast of Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. And I never got a reply. And some other kid obviously did the same, and he got to meet them. And there's this clip on YouTube. You can search it up. Little kid, Jim will Fix It meets Star Wars cast, and he meets R2 and 3. He meets R2, and he goes and meets Luke. I think it's on the set of Dagobah. But it was just, I was pissed off. I didn't get it. Anyway, regardless, Jim will Fix It. Jimmy Savile, I'm glad I didn't meet him actually, because Jimmy Savile was basically a paedophile and got arrested and died. So yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. I didn't get chosen for Jimmy Savile. That's good. Anyway, let's move on from that. So I'm not going to go through all my Star Wars stuff. You know, I have a lot of Star Wars stuff. You know, it is the foundation of my toy collection and my general love for toys. So I was dead into Empire and Jedi. So about that time, so I was like sort of 9, 10. I lived in Thorpe-le-Soken, and we lived there for about 3 years. And my mum and dad had a restaurant, and we were doing all right. We were doing okay. I'm a bit small. Let me bring this up a bit. There we go. And we had a video recorder. Now, in England, that was pretty fancy. We had a video recorder, and so I didn't get to go to the movies hardly at all, but we had a lot of videos, and we had this. Bear with me on this one, right? So we didn't have Blockbuster or video places we could go and get videos. We had a little bloke. I don't know whether he was little. He might have been medium-sized. But we had a little bloke who came around in a little van like this, a little white van. And every Friday night, he would drive into the restaurant car park where we lived. We operated a restaurant. And there's me, little kind of 9, 10-year-old Stevie. And he would open up the back doors, and Mum and Dad would send me out, and I could go in and I could choose 1 or 2 videos. And they used to hire them out for like 50 pence for the weekend, or it was a week. It might have been a week. And we used to go in there and we used to hire out videos. And that's how I used to see my videos. So remember back in those days, like early 80s, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I never saw Raiders of the Lost Ark at the cinema. No, I didn't. I think I saw it from the video guy in the little white van, which when I'm now talking about Jimmy Savile and getting into the back of little white vans, I'm amazed I'm alive still. But then with the good old days, right? Totally safe. So videos, one of the biggest influence on me is Jaws. Now I look back at Jaws and just kind of see what a great movie it was. I know with the hooky sharks, a bit weird, but like the way it was cinematography. And I live near Martha's Vineyard where it's filmed, so it has a great sophisticated influence on me in terms of craft of filmmaking and imagery. But back in the day, and if my mum's watching, she's probably going to tell me off now. My mum and dad must have hired Jaws. It was on video somewhere, and I don't think I was allowed to watch it, bearing in mind I was 9 or 10. It's because it's quite gory. And my mum went out to a French lesson. She was learning French. So she went out to an evening class, and my dad was working in the restaurant next door. We lived in a house next to it. And I stuck on Jaws and I watched it. And the bit where Quint gets killed here was like gave me nightmares for weeks and weeks and weeks. I wouldn't go into pools. I still get a little bit nervous getting into pools. It's ridiculous because there's not going to be a great white shark in a pool or even in the sea. So my fear of sharks, that's one of my biggest fears of dying, is like being eaten alive by a shark. And it's because of this bloody scene from this bloody movie, literally bloody movie, terrified me. I remember I couldn't sleep. It was awful. But amazing how moments of movies distress you, but kind of give you coping mechanisms for future. So I don't know, like, if any of you, what is the moment in cinema history that disturbed you the most, that scared you, but you kind of like it, you kind of love it? So whenever I see this scene, I kind of like it. Let me know in the comments below, and if I see it, I'll pop it up. So anyway, we were in the 80s, early 80s. I remember seeing Tron. That was a big movie that kind of influenced me because as a kid, you'd never seen anything like it, right? So this was 1982. I went with my mate Bryce Lennon to Clacton. We saw it for 50p. Everything was 50p then, clearly. And so I'm kind of looking at all this stuff. Like Jaws watched it too young. We got Pet Cemetery. I don't think I've seen Pet Cemetery. That's the Stephen King thing, right? With the dead animals. I haven't seen that. Oof, there. So Tron was brilliant for me. I loved Tron. Went and saw it with Bryce. I had a couple of the figures with. They weren't widespread in England. I think I had Sark. I think I had Sark, the red one there. But recently, I've been buying Tron. I've been rediscovering it. I still stand by my opinion that I don't like the soundtrack. I know a lot of people go, "How dare you? That Wendy," I've forgotten her surname. Wendy was a pioneer of synth, and I said, "Yeah, but I just don't like the soundtrack." But the visual effects and the storyline is really cool. So Tron was a big one in 1982. What else we got? The biggest one in 1982. So here's a big one: E.T. I absolutely adored E.T. It was huge. It was massive. I cried like an idiot when E.T. had to go, and I had everything. I remember. I don't know whether you guys did this. There was a thing about. I'm sure everyone did it about getting like newspaper cutouts or magazine cutouts or posters and things and putting it all over your wall and like covering the wall with blue tack and things like that, and just having like a almost like a shrine, a homage to movies. I had one to ET, and I had one to Madonna. I had one for Madonna for some reason. Really weird. I was dead into Madonna. We're not going to talk about that. But like ET was a huge movie for me, and it was actually the first thing that I think my family and my sort of immediate and my secondary family, like my aunties and uncles. I had 31 cousins, and I had my relatively big family, and they would go, "Oh, Stephen likes ET, buy him ET stuff." So like that Christmas in 82 or 83, probably both, I just got a load and load and load of ET stuff. And it was the first present I got that was a duplicate. I don't know whether I'm sure everyone's got dupe presents. It's quite insulting, isn't it? It was a red ET poster that was also a calendar. And I got two. I got one from my mum and dad probably, and then one from my auntie or a friend or whatever. And it was the first time I got a dupe Christmas present, and I was not impressed. Didn't like that at all. I was like, why have I got two? And so, yeah, I loved it that much. I got dupe presents. Look, I'm going looking. Yeah. Yes, I used to get looking. It was 10p, wasn't it? 10p in the old days. I keep meaning to pick up the 1981 looking annual, which is the one I remember. That's got Superman on the front, Danger Mouse. I think Sapphire and Steel, for any of you who remember Sapphire and Steel. Anyway, so ET, huge one. I'm sure it affected a lot of you. And there was a decent amount of stuff, but none of it actually looked like ET, if I'm fair. If I'm being honest, we got some things here. I got the LJN ET. I'm putting my cursor, but you can't see it, I don't think. I got a little custom one I made here, but there was nothing that really looked like ET. And I'll be honest, there's the NECA stuff they do, for the 40th anniversary recently. It looks spot on. It's beautiful. I would love a Hot Toys ET. I don't know why Hot Toys haven't done an ET yet. Like, that's crazy. I'd definitely have one of those. But back in the day, I had all the ET stuff. I used to collect sticker albums, the penny sticker albums. I used to get the biscuits. You can see, those of you who've seen Tall Toy Tales episode 2 or 4, whatever it is, I found a sealed packet of ET biscuits from 1982. I opened it up and took a bite, and it wasn't pleasant. There we go. Here. What's this question? This question. Did you have the little ET ship that was tiny? Yes, I did. I did have it. And if you can see on this picture? Oh, no, you can't. Oh, it's this there, right at the top. Top left. I'm using my cursor and you can't see it. Top left. So yeah, ET, great merchandise, big blockbuster. Loved it. Now, as I mentioned before, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Ark, again, is another movie that is almost like, how can I describe it? It doesn't have any fat. You know what I mean? Just like, it's like, yes. Oh my God. But I never saw it at the cinema. I did see Temple of Doom at the cinema, and I was excited about Temple of Doom. So Temple of Doom was 83. I want to say 83. And I was dead excited. I remember the trailer for that when they had the boat come out, or that was the clip they always showed on Blue Peter or whatever, the boat come out. So this was a big one for me. Again, you know my theory on, or you know my opinion on Indiana Jones. Like, I got all the original Kenner ones. We didn't have a lot of it in England, and it was an utter crime. I didn't like I didn't like the Temple of Doom, and there's nothing for Crusade. LJN had it for Temple of Doom and then didn't do anything with Crusade. I was really happy that we were able to do some retro stuff for Temple and Crusade. Again, not enough toys. There wasn't enough toys for me. 84, was it, Ken? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Thank you. And then Crusade was 89. So I love these movies, but they weren't the core of what made me today. And I'm not taking anything away from them. They were brilliant, but it just wasn't. It was, at this point so far, it was Superman, Star Wars, and E.T. I loved all this stuff, and there was a lot of stuff in the 80s, right? I'm actually gonna try different. No, too big. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff in the 80s, right? It was a good run, with Gremlins. So let me get my days right. Gremlins 80. Were these all 84? Gremlins was 84. Ghostbusters 84. Back to the Future 85, something like that. But that whole run in that 80s, and it's funny because I wrote down, there's a run of movies that we have. Right, I got it written here. From 1977 to 1990, which is where we're running the gamut from that, from the beginning of that to the end of that. Every year we had like an incredible movie. 77, Star Wars, Superman, Alien, Empire Strikes Back, Raiders, E.T., Return of the Jedi, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Transformers, which I have never seen. I have never seen Transformers the movie. I wasn't into Transformers at all. I don't think I've never owned a Transformers. I understand why it's so special, but I was never into it. I'm really sorry. Bearing in mind where I work, that's kind of bad, but that's just the truth. 86 was Transformers. We went RoboCop. Then we went to Die Hard, Batman 89, which we'll talk about much later. And then in the 1990s, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was a huge movie, a huge phenomenon. I was dead excited for that. I think I was most excited for that because someone had it on pirate video, and I had it on pirate video. I remember it being very dark and hardly watching it, but I remember that. But I didn't have any. I was a little old for Turtles. I was the wrong generation, but I've never had any Turtles toys. I haven't got any. No, I haven't got any in there at all. It didn't. I liked watching the TV show, the cartoon, which we'll talk about cartoons soon, but I didn't have any of the toys. I kind of missed it. And don't get me wrong, that toy line is probably one of the best toy lines ever made. I would say. I would suggest that and Star Wars, obviously, and Real Ghostbusters toys. Some of the greatest toys. Certainly one of the greatest featured toy feature line that's ever been made. Where are we at? So we got that. Ghostbusters. Do you remember this? Do you remember Ghostbusters on the Commodore 64? You could get Real Ghostbusters toys, which came out in 86. So actually you couldn't really, could you? Because Ghostbusters was 84, I think. Real Ghostbusters was 86. Am I right in that? Ghostbusters being 84? Can you remember? Can someone tell me whether that was 84 or 86? I know Real Ghostbusters was 86. I had a feeling that it came out and there was no product, there was no toys. But I do remember the Commodore 64 video game, which I used to love playing with my mate. Then we went back to, I'm going to go back to 83. So remember, Superman, my first movie that I really got into. Superman 2, the first movie I really was emotional about and got upset with Superman. Superman 3, I had this poster on the back of my door when I was 10 years old, 10 into 11. And this was the first movie that I saw and was disappointed in. This was my first critique. I was an arrogant 10-year-old, 11-year-old that saw it and went, I don't like that one. Why did he? Bear in mind, I didn't like Lois in Superman 2. I was like, why is he giving his powers away for that girl? And this one, I was like, hang on a minute. How come he's just done Lois and going off with Lana Lang? That's not what Superman would do. That's ridiculous. And I know the story behind it. And Margaret Kidd had a little bit of a disagreement with, I think it was the producers or the director. And so it was given 4 minutes screen time or something. I didn't like this movie. And it hurt me, upset me. That said, it has one of the greatest Superman scenes ever. This is the best scene in the worst movie. It's one of the worst movies. Oh, Superman 4 is that one. But yeah, I remember being disappointed in this. And I kind of like lost the Superman vibe a bit. I got it back. I enjoyed Superman Returns. I enjoyed Man of Steel. Man of Steel in particular is, it was the year my father died. So me loving Superman as I do, and that scene where Jonathan Kent sacrifices himself in the tornado and Hans Zimmer's doom 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 doom. I only need those two chords, that doom doom, and my heart breaks. You can play those two chords on anything. If I just hear those sounds, my heart completely breaks. So Superman is built in me in terms of movie and cinema, and I enjoyed Lois and Clark for what it was. I really enjoy Superman and Lois at the moment. I can't wait for the season, the fourth season coming out next month, I think, or is it this month? Anyway, so Superman 3, disappointment. I want to take a pause on movies. We've spoken all about movies, right? Bearing in mind that every day when we're at school, we're also being exposed not just to movie treats going to the cinema, but we're also exposed to TV almost every day. And this is going to be very UK centric. So those in the UK, you love this. So cartoons and TV shows that I loved. I love the Mr. Men. Oh my God, the Mr. Men were great. Got Mr. Men, Smurfs. I love Garfield. That was late 80s, wasn't it? What, 88 or something. Tom and Jerry. Again, a little bit like Tarzan, Johnny Weissmuller, Buster Crab, and George Reeves. I love Tom and Jerry. Bear in mind, that was 30s and 40s. Absolutely adored it. Muppet Show, Sesame Street, Jim Henson stuff. Just magical the way that he brought those to life. And I was fascinated by puppetry and how they were designed, and it was fantastic. So I've got a decent amount of Jim Henson stuff. Got my Little People, Muppets, and Sesame Street. And in the UK, now keep me real, UK friends, I think I remember this correct. I think I've got the timing right. So every day after school at about 3 o'clock, it would be children's BBC or children's ITV. There would be a period of children's programming from 3 to about 5:30, just before the news, which I think started at 5:35, or something like that, or it was Newsround or local news or something. But at the end of that 2 hours, there was always a 5-minute cartoon or animation, and it was really short. And then once this had finished, that was the signal. Children's TV was done, and all your parents could come in and watch all the boring news and all the rubbish stuff. And so British animation and stop animation had this sort of revolution, this renaissance in the sort of early 80s. Will-O-the-Wisp, which is top right here, Banana Man, which is all a story about a little boy called Eric that ate a banana and changed into Banana Man. Paddington, which is, I still believe, one of the most beautifully animated things on the planet. And Paddington the movie, 2014 movie, is perfect. And I tell a story where I was out with a load of licensing people, and there was a woman who worked for, I think it's Chorus, I think I've pronounced that right, who owned the rights for Paddington. She was drunk as a skunk, and she was talking about how they're making a Paddington movie, and they're like, we're making a Paddington movie. And I was like, oh my goodness, I love Paddington. I said, please do me a favor. Please don't like make it ultra modern. Keep it really innocent, and keep it kind of, he's naive and he's innocent. Like, keep that and make it really, really heartfelt. And she obviously wasn't that drunk, because it was. That 2014 Paddington movie, Paddington 2, is one of my most favorite movies ever. Bottom left, Wombles. You've heard me talk about the Wombles. I was born in Wimbledon, where this is set. It was actually first launched in TV in 1973, which is the year I was made. I got made. And then Amazing Adventures of Morph. This was Nick Park's Aardman Animation's kind of first-ish sort of successful TV show. So these 5-minute wonders, there is not enough toys for these. I've got a little Morph thing. I've got some Wombles stuff, I think, which is on the next page. I got Wombles, I've got some Mr. Man, Smurfs, I got Garfield. So all this kind of stuff is really, really important to me, but there's not enough of it made. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and one day I may do it. If I retire with enough money, maybe I'll crowdfund. I'd love to like make Womble toys. I'd love to make Will-O-the-Wisp toys. I'd love to make old school Paddington or Banana Man. Oh, it would just be fantastic. There we go. I got this one here. Trapdoor. Yes. It's like, stay away from that trapdoor, because there's something down there. Do-do, do-do, do-do. right? That's that one. Yeah. Oh, Ken, you're absolutely right. This is my dad's favorite. It's all themes. That's my whole life. That's all I ever do. My dad loved that rhubarb and custard. I would kill for rhubarb and custard. 6-inch articulated figure. There's one guy, I've always forget his name. What's the guy's name? Kibuki? There's a guy on Instagram who did 3D renders of rhubarb and or custard, and they're brilliant. And I keep saying, make those into figures. I'd buy them. Anyway, right, carry on. And of course, going across the pond, or they were on both sides of the pond, you know, I love Thundercats. I was a little old for Thundercats, but in those days, I didn't mind watching cartoons. I didn't necessarily have the toys, but I do now. Thundercats, He-Man. I know He-Man was earlier. That's like 83 or something. Real Ghostbusters and Battle of the Planets, or Gatchaman, whatever you want to call it. Now, that was a cartoon. That was a cartoon show. And that is another travesty that while, yes, you can get figures and things, but there was not a lot at the time at all. And I would love like a 375 Gatchaman Battle of the Planets range of figures with the God Phoenix. That'd be pretty big. The God Phoenix and all the cars and it'd just be incredible. It would be incredible. Oh yeah, and the Magic Roundabout. We're getting Ken's getting into it. Magic Roundabout. Yeah. When I was little, if my mum's watching, she told me this. When I was really little, when I used to have my nappy or my diaper changed, I used to cry and scream like that. And only a poster of Mr. Rusty from the Magic Roundabout would keep me quiet. They used to put it on the ceiling or the wall next to me. It had a sloping ceiling. We were up in the attic, I think, and that was the only thing I'd look at and keep quiet so they could change my nappy. Wow. So, in addition to all the cartoons, we obviously had all the TV shows, and again, the 80s was just rampant with these great Saturday sort of hour-long or 45 minutes long live-action TV shows. Knight Rider, Dukes of Hazzard, Buck Rogers, A-Team, all of that. And I know a lot of you are going to put stuff in the chat about all the other things. Street Hawk, Manimal. Was it Atom Man? No. Who was the guy? What was the one where he was in a car, he could turn right angles, a bit like Tron, and he had like it actually had like a little bit like from Tron. It was a Tron ripoff, but it was a car. You'll tell me. Fall Guy. Yeah, Tony. Fall Guy. Loved all that. Well, how'd that go? Not the kind to kiss and tell, but I've shown ladies plenty. When I wind up in the hay, it's only hay, hey, hey. Got blown up for Raquel Welch, I believe. But anyway, now here's one. Yeah, I've seen images of The Greatest American Hero, Ken. I have never watched it. I've never seen it, never had it in England. I thought it was a joke at one point, so I must catch up on that. I must see whether that was any good. Automan, thank you. Bingo. Well done. Star Fury 1984. Automan. That was it. He had this little thing that used to fly around with him. It was actually sung by Lee Majors. Yes, it was. There we go. Anyway, I got some stuff. So Mego did a load of stuff for Dukes of Hazzard. Galoob, I think, did A-Team, Real Ghostbusters, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of you shared this with me, but like Wonder Woman, Daisy Duke, and what was her name on Buck Rogers? Wilma Deering. Like they were our first crushes, right? 100% first crushes. I think also, who was the one in the Fall Guy? Was it Heather Locklear in the Fall Guy? I think that's right. Or was that TJ Hooker? I can't remember. But yeah, first crushes. Anyway, so I got some stuff. So TV is important as well. Got some He-Man. I got my Light Up, Lion-O. Oh, all right. I got to talk about this. I keep Ken. Right, Gerry Anderson shows. I didn't mind Thunderbirds. I actually quite like Joe 90 more than anything. And what was it? Stingray. Marina, Aquamarina. So interesting story. Gerry Anderson lived next door to my dad's headmaster. So when my dad used to go to school, no, he wasn't at school. He was finished at school. He met his headmaster. and his headmaster said, "Oh, he used to live next door to Gerry Anderson." Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what my dad told me. And he used to put on puppet shows to the neighborhood, just with like little sort of naked but painted puppets. And when he was kind of starting out, there we are, Captain Scarlet, bum ba bum ba bum, Terrorhawks. I don't remember the sound to the theme tune to that. That was like synth music, wasn't it? I remember when women spoke like that. She spoke like that, spoke like Alan Partridge. Anyway, so I've got some stuff. Black Hole. Black Hole is interesting. I've spoken about this before. Black Hole, I never watched as a kid because I didn't watch that or Star Trek: The Motion Picture, because that was almost like having an affair. I liked Star Wars so much. I was like, this Black Hole, that's not Star Wars. That's rubbish. But I kind of liked Vincent and old Bob. And I watched it recently. Well, I say probably a year or so ago. And well, the acting is terrible. Sorry. It's awful. The music, the John Barry music, is actually pretty cool. The story is actually really good. Disney, friends of Disney, you should redo Black Hole. Bring that back. What do we got? Who's this? Some Slough. This. It started with a click. Hey, Shelley. Is that a boy's or girl's name? Can be both. Don't get me wrong. I'm from Slough. I used to work near Slough. I used to work in Uxbridge at Hasbro. Thunderbirds was filmed on a large trading estate there near the Mars factory. There you go. I never knew that. FAB. That's a fab fact. So let's move on. So this was we were in the 80s, right? So we got up to about 1984 or something like that. And I was starting to get into be a teenager, sort of 13, 14. And all the cinemas seemed to not stop being blockbusters, got a little bit kind of dark and kind of like hardcore and a little bit kind of violent. And I don't know whether that was me just becoming a teenager or whether there was a trend in cinema at that point in time. But there were some great movies out in those days. RoboCop, Rambo. Rambo is still one of my most favorite movies ever. I recorded it on cassette and used to play it at night to help me go to sleep. Yeah. How will you live, John, day by day? What do you want, John? I want our country to love us as much as we love it. That's what I want. Die Hard, again, one of the best action movies ever made. Commando, I actually really like Commando. So it's all Stallone. It was all Schwarzenegger. Lethal Weapon was really cool. And, everything got a little bit tougher. This picture of me being tough with my two finger salute. And in that time, when I was sort of about 14, 15, I really got into ninjutsu. I used to study ninjutsu. Can't even say it, let alone do it. Study ninjutsu, and study is a loose term. I went to ninjutsu lessons. I was mad into ninjas. Oh my God, ninjas and skateboarding. That was me. And I wasn't very good at any of them really. I was all right at ninja stuff, but skateboarding. But Thrashing, that's another movie. And American Ninja, to those of you who don't know that on the left, American Ninja, he possessed great skills. It was fantastic. And Thrashing, which incidentally was Josh Brolin, our very own guy from the Goonies, which I haven't mentioned yet. Goonies is another good movie. And Thanos, that was his first movie, I believe. I think that's right. But like those two movies were wicked. So during this time, I was appreciating movies more for what they were without necessarily buying any toys or product from them, even though I've got a RoboCop in the back there. Then Batman hit. So this is a point in time in my life and career, I wasn't having a career. I was 16, 1989. This came along and this blew my mind. Batman was something that told me that design could be something that you could make money from, because this whole campaign of Batman with just the logo and just the date, I think over here it was, I don't remember the US date, but in England, I think it was like, I want to say August 23rd it was released. It was just everywhere. And the hype was so high for it in clips and the costuming and Anton Furst's Gotham design. And I was just like, oh my God, I want to design. I want to be a designer. I want to design Batman logos. I want to design cinema posters. And that's what I want to do. That's where I really started to knuckle down and learn how to draw and get books on graphic design and logos and things. I decided that's what I want to do at the age of 16. So Batman was just incredible. I will say, and you're going to hate me for this, I watched Batman and it does hold up, but some of the effects are a bit off. But it was a great, not great. It was a great movie, but it's a great cultural event. Let's put it like that. One that wouldn't be seen, well, only for another 4 years. But anyway, we'll get to that one. Oh, there's my Robocop. So yeah, so I've got some Batman stuff. You can see Robocop with the caps that still work. You can kind of pull back and it bangs. Again, not enough Batman movie toys for my liking. There was some, but it was sort of built on the Kenner Batman line, and that sort of exploded. And you got your Ice Arctic Batman. But I couldn't get a realistic looking Joker or Vicky Vale or things like that. Or that's Bob. I guess actually I'm kind of arguing with myself now. There was stuff, but anyway. So that was leading into the 90s. So the 80s was pretty freaking cool for movies and toys. It was I would argue, and some of you will argue, but you're wrong. I will argue it was late 70s, all through the 80s was the golden era of movies, blockbusters, merchandise, toys, and action figures had moved from these representative kind of articulated characters, and now we were getting them at 4.5 inch and 5 inch, and they were having features, and they lit up, and they had caps, and they transformed again. Like Kenner's Ghostbusters, Real Ghostbusters was incredible. So the 80s was absolutely fantastic. The 90s for me, by this time I was sort of late teens. I'd started collecting, ironically, or collecting. I wasn't really buying toys to play with. But in 1991, I went to America. I was 18. Was I 18? Yes, I was 18. And I'd been to America before, if you remember, when I went and saw Star Wars at Mann's Chinese Theatre. But this was my first cultural exposure to America as an 18-year-old. I had fun. And cinematically, this was a good year. 1991 was a good year. We had T2. What else do we have? We had Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which I love, by the way. Like, this is a good movie. This is a good leave your brain at the door. I love it all. It's schmaltzy. It's cheesy. The accents are all over the place. The geographic location of England is absolutely ridiculous. How could you arrive on the south coast and then be up Hadrian's Wall in like a couple of hours? It's crazy, but I do love it. And it has one of my most favoriteest quotes from a movie, which is Duncan turning to Marion, and he says, "He fancies you, my lady." And he's completely blind. And he goes, "I may be blind, but there are some things I can still see." I love that. It's one of my favoriteest quotes. And Robin Hood. All of you Star Wars collectors and Kenner fans, about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. It was a last-minute toy line that came on because the movie was so successful. There's a lot of reuse. We can see the Ewok village in there. We know all about Friar Tuck being a Gamorrean Guard redo. And I have to give a cool shout out to Retro Toy Quest, who make this book, who's got this book. If you haven't seen this book, you should check it out. It's like very easy to follow histories of more obscure toy lines. So I went and bought a load of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves figures, but they're still in a bucket over there, and I need to find room for them. But they are good toys. I forgot how well made they are with the soft goods and things. So Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was really cool. And I went and saw Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey as well, which is 91. And I hadn't seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I went to see a double bill. Another great movie. And just to talk about double bills. So while I'd seen one with Star Wars and Empire back in 1980, I didn't realize how common that was over here. You guys, when I came over in 91, you guys go to cinema a lot, right? Bear in mind, I came over for a few weeks. I saw T2 with Robin Hood. There was a double bill, weird one. And then I saw Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, double bill, these two. And this is the first place I bought my first CD. My first CD purchase was the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey soundtrack in those weird long CD racks, those long CD cases, those cardboard ones. What are they about? The little CDs right at the bottom, but you have these big long things. I assume it's so you can kind of see them really easily. But that was weird. When did that last? When did they stop doing that? Answers on a postcard, please. I got some Bill and Ted stuff. I enjoyed the cartoon a little bit, but it was just kind of cool, especially in England. Anything West Coast. Remember, I was kind of skateboarding, and it was like, oh, Bill and Ted's, that's awesome. And also in '91, Hook came out. I found out that Spielberg was making Hook. Remember, Peter Pan, first movie I ever saw. I'm called Tink. This was an emotional movie for me. Didn't get any toys. I was obviously too old. I've got Peter. I haven't got anything else because I've got to control it. But this movie was, as we say in England, a game of two halves. I love all the Peter being old and going to London and it being snowing and meeting Wendy, who's now old, and it's just, Peter, you've become a pirate. All of that genteel London, Kensington Garden stuff was fantastic. The bit where he remembers who he is and remembers happy thoughts with his kids and the flying sequences I really loved. I loved Hoffman as Hook. I thought he was excellent. And Bob Hoskins as Smee. I did not like Tinkerbell. Bearing in mind, I'm Tink. Julia Roberts as Tink. Didn't work. And she came big and I didn't like that. And I'll be honest with you, it felt a little bit too American, which I understand. Spielberg and Neverland. Who says Neverland is in England or should be English? But like baseball, I was watching going, they should be playing cricket. Why are they playing baseball? So I do love Hook, but there's a few little niggles in there which I don't enjoy. But anyway, it was if I remember correctly, in my mind, Spielberg rushed this a little bit because he was eager to get onto his next big blockbuster project, which we'll get to. Oh, while I was out in America as well, I also got into Star Trek Next Generation. I wasn't into Star Trek because remember, I was Star Wars through and through. But I did start watching Star Trek Next Generation when I was out there and kind of loved that and got the comic books. That's when I started getting comics. So I get X-Men comics and Star Trek comics and Guardians of the Galaxy and Spider-Man. You've seen all that. But I do like Star Trek. I don't mind it at all. My favorite one is Star Trek. Well, Wrath of Khan is good, but I actually do like Star Trek 4. Is that the Journey Home with the whales? I kind of like that. It's cheesy, but it's cool. Right. Let's go on. So we're now into 93. Remember Batman had told me in 1989 that I wanted to do design. So in 1992, I'd started university at Brighton. In 1993 was basically another Batman, was another hype movie that was coming out. There's a picture of me looking slightly concerned. But Jurassic Park in 93 was very similar to Batman in the way that it was just a machine of merchandise and hype, and the fact that we were going to see proper CG dinosaurs. And I will argue that this T-Rex scene is one of the best scenes in cinematic history. The way it's shot, the way it deals with suspense, the acting, it stands there. It stands right up there in my opinion. And so Jurassic Park was the cement for me when I was at university, and I was like, yeah, I'm in the right place. This is what I want to do. Batman gave me the inspiration. This is giving me the seal of approval. I'm going to do stuff around this. And I bought stuff. I bought quite a lot of merchandise. Didn't get many of the toys because I was like, they don't look like the characters. Why is this? But cups and Weetabix cards and collectibles and comics and things, I was dead into that because Brighton was like the epicenter of collectibles in the UK by far. I would say bigger than London. Those of you may disagree with me, but in my mind, Brighton was the home and the heart of collecting in England. I also really like The Lion King. Don't know why. I had posters, I had little toys, I had like a little shrine in my room, which is weird, bearing in mind I'm at Brighton. I'm kind of, what my age am I now? This is 94. I am 21. And I'm 21 years old and I like The Lion King. I'm not ashamed. I don't care. I had like posters and everything up. It was awesome. And I remember playing this game. You remember this game on the SNES, Super Nintendo? I was Super Nintendo. I was not Sega Mega Drive. Sorry, those of you like Sega Mega Drive. I have a tendency of doing that, picking one or the other and staying loyal. I'm Apple, not Android. I'm Nintendo, not Sega. But I love The Lion King as well. So I eventually got to a point where I left college, left university, and I got a job. This is my working era. So my first job before I got into toys, into Hasbro, was working at a company called Athena, which made posters. And those of you that live in England and are my age will remember the Athena stores. And that is where you went and got your posters for your room. So my job was to create posters that were based on films like Independence Day, Men in Black. I also did a lot of stuff with the Muppets, which I really enjoyed, bearing in mind that I love the Muppets. So I was able to work with Henson and create the parody posters, Dogfather, Plump Fiction. I can't remember. There's a load of others, like a Calvin Klein one. So that was my dream job, right? I was like, hey, I'm making posters. This is really, really cool. Yeah, Tony remembers Athena when I used to do the posters that you didn't buy when you were a teenager. Oh, actually, I don't know how old you are, so maybe you did. And then in 1999, and this is me in 1999, Phantom Menace came out. Star Wars was back. There was a job at Hasbro. I got the job. I didn't work on Star Wars back then. I worked on Action Man and things like that, but I was in the company that was making it. I was seeing things coming in. I was helping with packaging. I did Monopoly episode 2. So Phantom Menace in 99, Ep 2 in 2002, Sith in 2005. I was there doing stuff and packaging, and I was like, this is it. I'm into toys. Star Wars is back. I'm loving it, loving it. And then my career went on. I won't labor over that. You know that you can watch the other episodes for that. But the next movie that kind of really hit me hard, and it didn't hit me for a while, was I went and saw Iron Man. And that was probably the first movie I saw as a grown-up. I was a proper grown-up. So what am I then? I am freaking old. What am I, 30? 35? No, 25. 35. 2008. 35. 2008? Yeah. That was the first movie I came out and thinking, I've just seen a movie that made me want to be the main character again. I haven't done that since I was like 14 or younger. So I think Iron Man was a really important movie to capture an older generation and make them feel okay to want to be young and excitable again. And it's okay to like Marvel. I spoke about Jurassic Park, the T-Rex, the first appearance of T-Rex being one of the best cinematic scenes, in my opinion, in cinematic history, or for me. Portals and Endgame is the other one. The fact that Captain America, Steve Rogers, is standing there facing Thanos and his hordes, and he's defeated, and his shield is broken, and he's withered, and just that look of like, but he keeps going, straps on the shield, and he's going to stand there. He's going to die. He's going to sacrifice everything. And then everyone comes through the portals, and it's all, the music's great. The cinematography's great. And the fact that he goes, Avengers Assemble's great. And the audience just goes, that's a moment. That's a real moment in history. I loved that too. And then, of course, when I got the job, my final kind of sorry, my daughter's texting me. When I got my dream job, my true dream job, that's difficult to say, working on Star Wars in 2014, 2015, Force Awakens, that whole experience and that movie itself kind of reignited everything. No matter what you think of the sequel trilogy, there's a, sorry, everyone's dinging me, turn off. There was a cultural shift when that happened. And, I look back, and I'm an original trilogy guy. I watched the prequels. I had my own opinions of the prequels, but like now that generation is looking back, and love for prequels is way up there. Hayden Christensen went from being loathed to being absolutely lauded and kind of welcomed back into the fold. This will happen with a sequel trilogy. I know it will. It's just natural. It's just how people work. And I was there, and I was involved. And one day I will tell the full story of this and show all the things I've got and other stuff that I can't show at the moment. But this was a very, very special moment. So The Force Awakens is an incredible moment in cinematic history for me. and I have a few bits and pieces around, and there's a few rarities. So, in essence, I tried at the end of this, I thought, right, what the hell does all this mean? I'm like, which of all the movies that you've loved, all the things that you've watched and enjoyed and have influenced you and inspired you, boil it down, Steve. What are the movies, the things that are the best, that make you? So it's really hard. And I boiled them down, not necessarily into movies, but into icons or into moments or characters or principles. And these are it. This is what I am. And you can see me from being a cute little guy to old gray haired dude with a bad neck because it hurts. Peter Pan. Peter Pan taught me, never grow up. Never give up. Never grow up. Always be youthful. And that is the way of things. Superman taught me, always be good. Always try and do the best and protect those around you, whether it's your children, whether it's your work colleagues, whatever, but be good. Be good. Batman's an interesting one because Batman is the other side of that coin. No matter how good we all are or we act, there's still always a bad side of us. Every single one of us always got like a little dark place. And I've been in dark places like everyone else. And Batman taught me that you have to acknowledge it and address it and use that energy for good, even if you're not good. So Batman and Superman are kind of like, I can't separate them. I can't separate them. And Star Wars teaches me that stories are often told across generations. A story is not a short tale. It can go on and on and on. And whether that's the story of Anakin and Luke, etc., whether it's a story of my dad to me or my grandfather to him, to me or to my children, but this idea of a generational story is like we're in it. All our lives are stories, and we're in it forever and ever and ever. So that's very deep, but though it's me, you should know this by now. So they're the four things. They're the four movies or events that really kind of mean something to me. And I always try and choose optimism over cynicism. And it's interesting. I've said this before, and I'll say it one more time. When I look at characters are always built to be opposites. So the ones that work the best, like Superman and Batman, right? Superman is naive and Batman is cynical. I've always choose the good guys. I always choose the Boy Scouts. Like I like Batman, but I want to be Superman. I like Han Solo. He's cool, but I want to be Luke Skywalker. I like Iron Man, but I really want to be Captain America. I always want to be the Boy Scout. I always want to be the good guy. And I think that says a lot. But I don't know why, because I kind of sometimes want to be the scoundrel, the rogue. Not sure. I have to think about that a little bit more. But this was a very, cathartic exercise of sort of looking at movies and entertainment and how that inspired collecting and toys and kind of built me as well. I'm sure you've all got your own stories. And I have ignored you for too long. So why don't we have a little look at what you've got to say? So don't be shy. Put your thoughts in the live chat. Anything in there kind of like pique your interest or make you think about something? I'm sure I've left off a load of great movies, a load of great TV shows and missed out a load of stuff. But there we go. That's what I do. So what do we got? I'm just going to pick some randomly because it's rude for me to read it and not put it up. Yeah, the Midnight Toy Run was amazing. So I went out with the team on Force Friday when Force Awakens came out, and the vast majority of us had never experienced anything like that before. Mark Boudreau had. He was an old hat. He'd experienced it many times. And it was magical to see people buzzing with all the new product and us standing there knowing that we'd made it. We'd actually made the product they were picking up. Go, oh, look at this. You get, oh, what's this? Oh, get that. And we were just, it was really weird. It was really weird. We kind of wanted to sort of just go, we made that. It was very cool. It was really cool. What else we got? Well, we got life lessons here. Toytastic. It's amazing to think of all the life lessons we learn from movies and TV shows. Some of them best from. Yeah, it is weird, and it's kind of throwaway. Movies and TV, they come and they go. It's like, but at the end of the day, it is just expression of story. and stories are a human way to teach. They are the best way to teach. So we should never underestimate the power of story. You should never underestimate the power of TV, movies, or anything, for good and for bad. But it's just a vehicle for stories and fable. So Shelley says, growing up in the 80s and 90s was the best. Today's kids are missing out. So let's talk about that. Because I think about this a lot. As I've got kids, my kids are 21 and 17. I have 3 children. And there's so much out there. There's so many toy lines. There's so many video games. There's so many brands and stories and characters. And it's like, I wonder, are they not going to have the nostalgia? Are they not going to, what are they going to relate to when they're older? What are they going to look back upon fondly? Bearing in mind, they're also digitally connected all the time. So they have 8,000 photos. You know, you saw the photos I showed today. Like, that's probably it. Like, I didn't have many photographs. So any snippet of nostalgia or memory is really important, is really potent. Whereas today, I think it is slightly diluted because they can have anything they want whenever they want it. I will say that as I look back, as I look at my son who's 21, and he's starting to get nostalgic for things like Beyblades, cars, Pixar cars. He's really nostalgic for Lord of the Rings. You know, that's 23 years ago, nearly 24 years ago. Harry Potter. You know, that whole generation. I tell you another one, TV show that's going to come back and be really popular, I reckon, Ben 10. I think Ben 10 is going to get a nostalgic hit. So I'm now looking at Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter thinking, oh my God, this generation is ready for that. Like, and I know they're rebooting a lot of Lord of the Rings. I know there's a Harry Potter TV show coming out. You know, they're gonna knock on the door of that nostalgia, the nostalgia that we had. So it's like 70s, 80s, 90s, and now we're into the noughties and even into the noughties. It's like nostalgia is going to catch up with us, which is a bigger concern. But I bet the kids won't be missing out. They'll find something. They always will, because nostalgia and memory and childhood is something that is always with you, whatever generation you are. I'm sure there are people that are older than me going, these kids, they don't know where they're born. When I was young, we had Lost in Space and all this kind of stuff. What you got? Yeah, Fortnite. Yeah, I play Fortnite. I love Fortnite. That's going to be a big thing. Anyway, so I'm just going to pull up some other stuff. You're right. Continue the stories in the theater. It's really important. What else we got? Did I get any souvenirs during the trip to the US? No, it was. What did I get? No, I didn't get any collecting stuff. I think by that time, had I got my Star Wars stuff? No, I hadn't. No, I had got all my Star Wars stuff by that. I was 18. Yeah. So I'd got it all, and I was only collecting Star Wars at the time. So I didn't get anything out there. I got my Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey CD. Anyway, I think that's about it. What is that? Is that an hour? Oh my God, it is an hour. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. It was a little different from normal, but I hope it kind of sparked some thoughts on your part. And I've got another week to think of something else to talk about. Maybe I'll give it a break for a while. I'm not sure. Now, I'm thinking of my mum watching this, and she's probably thinking, you still went on a little bit long, Stephen. You still babbled. You still repeated yourself many times. And you're right, Mum. I do repeat myself. You ask my wife, I make the point about 6 times, especially if I'm in arguments. Long arguments with me when I get cross. But this is a very special way for us to, for me to capture my memories, Mummy. All right. So this is a good thing. It keeps me sane. All right, you lot. You can all bugger off now and go and have your nice weekend. I think we are done and dusted. And it says some thanks for sharing. Thanks again. What's this one? This one looks interesting. I think Palahuniak, I'm pronouncing that wrong, wrote that everyone either searches for reasons to be good or for excuses to not have to be good, and that reflects in who we choose to become our heroes. I think I get that. I'm not sure. All I know is that I have good thoughts and I have bad thoughts, and all I want to be is good. But I have to accept the bad and to work out what's good. Right. That's too deep. I'm going now. Bye bye. Bugger off. Have a good week. Bye.